Stay tuned for the Splash Live. It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the Greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome, friends and neighbors. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you so much for joining us. You saw West Bloomfield Laker greats like Donovan Edwards, Makari Page, and former head coach Ron Bellamy win a national title at the University of Michigan during the 2023-2024 season. Then and ever since, controversy surrounding the Michigan program after former assistant coach Connor Stallions was revealed to have devised an elaborate advanced scouting program that went outside of NCAA rules. Now, just last week on Friday, August 15th, the NCAA making an official ruling with Michigan maintaining its national title as well as postseason eligibility, leaving many in the college football community still up in arms about the whole situation. Here with his unique thoughts from inside the Michigan football alumni community is West Bloomfield's go-to Michigan football alum, Doug Cohen. Doug, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, Tyler. Good to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on for a pretty unique perspective, because everybody in the sports community, certainly all the pundits, those across the aisle from Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, and every other corner of college football has their thoughts on this. So I want to lead off with what you think about the initial ruling coming from the NCAA recently in mid-August that kind of puts all this to bed, at least for now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my thoughts on it are that the entire thing was a big joke and a big sham. And, you know, everybody's up in arms about it, and it's not about integrity. It's about coping, because we did something better than they did, and we beat them all, and they can't really say anything else about it, so they've latched onto this sign-stealing scandal, which the funny thing about it is it's not a sign-stealing scandal because you can steal signs. There's nothing illegal about stealing signs. We didn't get in trouble for stealing signs. Everyone steals signs. So to even call it a sign stealing scandal is clickbait. It's all a big, it's ridiculous. And even though there was no hammer and no vacated wins and no postseason ban and no asterisks, even though there were none of those things, it's still ridiculous that they fined us the money that they did. And we're appealing that as such because, we broke a rule that was made in 1994 before there was even such thing as a smartphone. And now they're saying we broke that rule with smartphones. Well, that had nothing to do with the rule. It's really, the whole thing's pretty funny.
And from all indications, it was organized by an individual with individuals outside of the Michigan football organization. So that's the take from inside the Wolverine camp, is that, yes, this was outside of the norm from what you see in the NCAA. You could argue that it does violate rules, but at the same time, sign stealing versus the advanced scouting mechanism, it's the mechanism that was the problem here. And so my thoughts on this are kind of different. I'm going to take off my Sparty goggles altogether with this, because the fact of the matter here, Doug, is Michigan got exactly what was coming to it. A pretty light result from the NCAA, all things considered, considering how severe this was said to be by all parties involved, with the exception, of course, of the University of Michigan. But they got exactly what was coming to them because it was coming from the NCAA, an organization that's becoming less and less relevant over time. And even putting on my Spartan glasses once again, I think this is the best possible result, because why delay the inevitable with the NCAA going the way it's going? It's not going to be around much longer. And so let's move on from that and go on to something more on the inside of this. We know all these different angles. We've explored what is the situation with the Connor Stallions controversy. What should the punishment be? Is it good enough? But from inside Michigan football and inside that community, particularly with people like yourself that have been in the trenches, that are still heavily involved with the team or with the community today, what's this moment like for you? Is it a sense of relief to now be able to move on from this in some sense?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's just I'm just glad I don't have to hear about it anymore, even though, of course, I'm hearing about it all day, every day at the moment. The fact that the investigation is over and that there's no more wondering what kind of penalty is going to be handed down. Yeah, I mean, I think for those of us who aren't, in the building all the time now, who are still involved and still have to kind of navigate this in our daily lives out in the community, it's nice to know that part of it is over. I think inside the building, it's just been business as usual. I mean, I did get a chance to see a practice, and you'd never know that there was any of this stuff swirling around outside the building. They're focused in the building. So for us, who are out in the community and who are gone from there and are alums, yes, it's nice that it's over.
And the fact of the matter is, even if it went the way that Ohio State faithful, certainly many of my Michigan State faithful, had in some ways hoped it had gone. Fact of the matter is, you were still there on that final night. You still hoisted the trophy. You can't take those memories away from the Michigan community. And so with all this being what it is, all the controversy surrounding it, I'm pretty sure I know your answer to this, Doug. Does it at all change that feeling of your school being national champions just 2 seasons ago?
Absolutely not. It doesn't change that at all. And I had the opportunity, the privilege to be able to go down to Houston and be there for that game. And that was one of the greatest nights ever. And it's not like it no longer is because of what the NCAA said. And what's kind of interesting about it, the hypocrisy here is, listen, when there were SEC teams in the South for years who were cheating their butts off, paying players with slush funds and, handing out bags and handshakes with stacks of cash in them. Like, when that stuff was happening and, maybe a coach would move on and there'd be some kind of penalty after the fact and they'd still be celebrating their championships. I know what it's like to be on the other side of that and be able to point at them and say, oh, they still get to celebrate their championship. They cheated their butts off. And there were teams that were cheating for years, cheating like crazy. One in particular I'll mention is Ohio State, who had an entire season vacated. And if you ask them, they'll say, that's BS. The NCAA is a joke. And, for a few tattoos, they take away a whole season. Everything. They hate the NCAA for that. But suddenly now that now the NCAA today is a beacon of truth because they're going after Michigan. They were a joke when they went after Ohio State, but now they're a beacon of truth going after Michigan, and Michigan is, the cheater. So there's a lot of hypocrisy there, and none of that is going to take away from what we did on the field, going 15-0. Only 5 teams have ever done that in the history of college football. And it was a special season, and everybody that was a part of it and got to see it up close knows that, and that'll never change.
Doug, you're wrong. The NCAA was a joke then, and it's a joke now. It's grabbing onto any leg it can grab onto as it drowns in the lake of college sports in 2025. Doug Cohen is with us. He's a Michigan football alum from right here in West Bloomfield. As the big news late last week and all throughout the college football conversation right now as we approach the beginning of the season is the NCAA's ruling on the University of Michigan. No vacated wins, no vacated championships, still eligible for the postseason. Hefty fines, upwards of $20 million and it could include some postseason revenue being vacated as well, and a show cause order for 3-game suspension over 2 seasons for head coach Sharon Moore. But a lot of this fodder goes back to rivalries being perhaps a bit too heated. Whether it's Michigan and Ohio State, Michigan and Michigan State, or even those rivals teaming up against their co-arch rival with MSU and OSU communities, very often piling on to Michigan. It kind of goes back to something I've noticed for several years throughout all of these communities. Do you believe that our rivalries are getting too heated and are losing some of the sportsmanship and that friendly banter and trash talk that used to really be the status quo between Michigan and Michigan State, Michigan and the Ohio State, as they call themselves?
Yeah, I do think it has. And I think you can look at this as part of a bigger picture with a lot of our dialogue, in America today, that some of the some of the elements of social media where you can argue at a distance from behind a screen with an anonymous handle, and people get really nasty online about a lot of topics, not just rivalries in football. So I do think that the temperature does, in some cases, get heated, and I think there's some publications. Not all of them are, it goes beyond just like Sports Illustrated and the Detroit News, for example. There's, everybody's got a blog or some kind of a website or page, and a lot of them kind of stoke those fires with clickbait type headlines to get people riled up, and people take the bait and then they get riled up. So I think there is some of that, but I think offline, when you meet people face to face, when I walk around wearing Michigan gear, I don't have people from Michigan State or Ohio State coming up and getting in my face and trolling me and saying nasty things to me. It's generally still pretty friendly banter. I mean, I just drove through Ohio a few weeks ago, and a guy stopped me at a service plaza on the Turnpike. I was wearing my Michigan football alumni gear. He was an Ohio State guy, and he was like really, kind of excited to talk to me about the rivalry. And it was a great conversation. And there was a little bit of, a couple of friendly jabs, and it was all in fun. And so I think when it's like that, those, to your point, are the best things about these rivalries and the best things about college football. And I try, I don't go onto Facebook with aliases. I'm there as me. And I will smack talk back if somebody says something really nasty. But I've also made a lot of friends online with Spartans and Buckeyes where the banter is friendly. And I try not to add to the temperature, but I will defend my alma mater if somebody comes at me really hard. So long answer, short. Yeah, I think the temperature has gone up, but I'm trying to do what I can, where I can, to bring it down more often than playing into it. We all have our moments, where somebody says something that triggers us when we're having a bad day and you want to just fight back. But, I think we should all try to not do that, me included.
Sports are fun, but we gotta remember, sports are kind of stupid too. They're not real life. We can take the step back. It's all recreational, and I think that's a really good take on our rivalries in recent years. Doug, before we let you go, on a more positive note, we've seen a lot recently of our own West Bloomfield Lakers close to home, including some of your Michigan Lakers at the National Football League level. A couple of exciting moments last week. We'll roll those, beginning with Donovan Edwards was able to get his hands on the football against the Green Bay Packers, as back in the proper colors of green and white with the New York Jets, taking the ball to the house. Of course, it was called back on a holding penalty, but that's classic Donovan Edwards. And then a few days later, a big reunion between Donovan and another New York football player, Makari Page of the Giants. And then on the field, Makari Page picking up his first interception at the National Football League level. Doug, beyond, of course, Donovan and Makari and others from the Michigan and West Bloomfield community that have made it to the next level, so many of our Lakers are now playing in the NFL, including first-round pick Maxwell Hairston of the Buffalo Bills. Your thoughts and your pride on this local football community you support so much, getting its due recognition at the global level today?
Yeah. No, I love it. It's fantastic to see the local guys do so well, and let's hope that Max Hairston's knee heals up. It wasn't he avoided a real serious injury, from what I understand. It was just a sprained LCL. So hopefully he's back in action soon. And to see Donovan and Makari, what was really cool was, those guys, after the game, they posted a picture that I saw on Instagram, after the game with Makari and Donovan and Braden McGregor, their other Michigan teammate on the Jets, the three of them together. Must have been a fantastic moment for those guys to be able to take a photo like that. And so it is great. I got a chance in the COVID year to spend a lot of time at those games because my best friend who I played ball with at Michigan, Barry Kelly, his son Caleb Kelly, may he rest in peace, was on that team. And so these are his teammates that are going on and doing these things. And so that pride is kind of personal for me because I know it means a lot to my buddy whose son was on that team with those guys. So for a number of reasons, as a member of the local community, it means a lot to see West Bloomfield represented so well in the league. I mean, that's a really special thing to be able to see, where you got multiple guys from your hometown here all playing in the NFL. It's fantastic.
And those looking on, soon to be there possibly as well, Dylan Tatum, who was at MSU, now at Northwestern, and of course, Samaj Morgan, a wide receiver for Michigan, alongside former West Bloomfield head coach Ron Bellamy. Doug, we got to move on, but thank you so much for your time today and giving us your thoughts on the recent news from Ann Arbor.
Thanks a lot, Tyler. I appreciate you. Go Blue.
I won't repeat that back to you. I'll say go green, go white as we say goodbye to you today. That's how you have a friendly rivalry. They say their line, I say my line, and we just move on from there. Let that be a lesson to those of you out there in TV land. The next time you go vote in West Bloomfield Township, you may need to go to a different polling place. Changes are underway with West Bloomfield Township's clerk's office shifting gears on some of the township's voting precincts. Here to explain the changes is Clerk Debbie Binder. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Tyler. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, and good to talk to you about this. Elections are always some time that get a lot of people out in our community to have their voices heard locally, statewide, federally, of course. But there's some changes on the way to our precincts, reducing the number overall, but a pretty clear and concise reason for that. Please explain.
So what we have seen over the last, many years, we've seen a shift in voter habits where they've taken more to voting, ahead of Election Day, whether it's by absentee voting, and now we have early voting. So we've seen a declining number of people voting on Election Day. And Proposal 2 of 2022 statutorily allowed communities to increase the size of registered voters in their precincts from 2,999 to 4,999. We didn't do it right away because we wanted to wait and see the metrics from the November of 2024 election and, see what we saw in a big election before we made that kind of decision. And we didn't want to make the wrong decision. Many communities are doing this, though, now to consolidate because we have seen a tremendous voter shift. We're averaging about 30% of voters now on Election Day, which is down significantly from the numbers that used to vote in the precinct. So it will allow us to, we will consolidate precincts. It will allow, provide for fewer election workers, less equipment, and it will just make it easier to administer Election Day. In this case, it will result in almost everybody will have a new precinct number. Most will not change their polling location. Most will vote in the same polling location, just in a new precinct number. There will be some, though, that will have a change of location, and some just by, for example, the Parks building is being rebuilt, so they will be relocated for at least for a while. So with those kinds of changes, but we are trying to keep things as stable as possible. Hopefully you'll see some of the same faces, but we will see we are going to go from 26 precincts down to 20 precincts. And it is consistent. I think if you look around at communities, everyone is either made that change or is making that change. We just didn't want to make it going into 24 until we were confident that the numbers were still going to be there.
And you mentioned a lot of these details at the recent West Bloomfield Township Board meeting. That is on civiccentertv.com on demand for those watching and listening if you want to hear some more details on this from earlier on in the month. Part of what went into the restructuring of these precincts that I think people will really be well receptive to, Debbie, is aligning the precincts more along the lines of where the schools are located. Often in the past we've had people that are on the borderlines of maybe Walled Lake and West Bloomfield schools. Their kids go to one and they vote in another. That's somewhat rectified in these new precincts, correct?
It will definitely help the way we actually, it's been a tremendous outcome of being able to have those size precincts. We will now, we are a community that has 7 school districts in that, and within our boundaries, our jurisdiction, which is unusual. The next closest is White Lake with 5, and most only have 1 or 2. So 7 school districts is quite a few within the boundaries that we're conducting elections for. So previously, we had multiple precincts that had what we would call a split, and they had ballots from the two different school districts, or sometimes it was including when one district had an election, the other one didn't. But the election workers, who are just temporary workers, had to make sure that the voter got the correct ballot, whichever school district they lived in. We were able to consolidate now in such a way that each precinct will only have 1 school district within it. So it will make it much easier for the election workers on election day, and it will make it easier for the clerk's office to administer and just increase the efficiency as well of not having to manage different ballot styles. So we look forward to that change. Most of the buildings, we're trying to finalize 1 precinct still into a new location, but we're not sure exactly what that location will be yet. We're trying to align it better with the school district, or at least with not having to have a neighboring school district be open on election day for an election that they don't have. So we're working on finalizing that, but the map is currently up on the website that will show what people's new precinct number is and what their new polling locations, except for the 1 precinct that we're still working out the details. And because of this change, as required by law, and to help with the change, every single voter will get a new voter ID card telling them of their new precinct number and their new polling location. And the information is always available, I like to remind people, at what's called the Michigan Voter Information Center, which can be obtained by either going to MVIC for Michigan Voter Information Center.gov or michigan.gov/vote. Either way will lead you to the Voter Information Center where you can confirm that information. Again, we're looking at between early voting and absentee voting, we're having about 70% of our ballots are cast either by absentee ballot or by going to the early voting center. I do think we will continue to see that. We may see some people who experience long lines in the early voting in November of 24, a little hesitant to come back. I can, with quite a bit of confidence, tell people that we won't see that kind of a crowd again in the early voting center until the next presidential election. The other elections have been nowhere near that crowded, so don't be afraid of early voting. And also I want to remind people that they can bring their absentee ballot to the early voting center. And if they bring their absentee ballot to the early voting center and they feed the ballot through the tabulator, and they've made any kind of a mistake, it'll bring the ballot back to them, and they can spoil it, get a new one, and vote it again. Now, what I mean by mistake, because people go, what's a mistake voting? Mistake would be that in a primary you crossed over parties, and then that made the partisan section of your ballot not count. Or if you overvoted for a contest, you selected 3 choices when you were only allowed to select 2. If you actually scan the ballot yourself through the tabulator is going to give you your ballot back and say, did you mean to make this decision? And if it did, the voter has the choice to cast their ballot as is. But if it's not what the voter meant, they do have an opportunity to spoil it and get a new one. So early voting, really, I was kind of one of the later adopters as well, but it's a nice and refreshing opportunity for somebody who their work schedule makes it harder to get there on election day, or their vacation plans make it hard to get there on election day. It provides a great option for people to vote, a different way. And they can also get on the permanent ballot list, which means they will get an absentee ballot automatically in the mail. When they get that absentee ballot, they can either return it as an absentee ballot, or they can vote it in the early voting center. Again, being able to get feedback if they make a mistake. If it comes through as an absentee ballot and there is a mistake, a bipartisan team is going to look over that ballot and make a determination if the voter just had a stray pen mark and didn't mean to mark a box, or if there was something that triggered the machine to catch it. But it's not the same as the voter having the opportunity to spoil the ballot and vote it again. So I think that the reception to early voting has been significant. And if we look at the shift, we kind of see that our early voting and our absentee kind of brought the previous absentee together, but we've also brought some over from the voting on election day in their polling location. So you will see the fewer number of precincts. So we're going from 26 to 20. And obviously, because I know I've been asked, so I'm bringing this up just because I've been asked, even though I don't anticipate this to be an outcome, what will you do if there are long lines? And obviously, if there are long lines, we will adjust. We will not leave the long lines. Now, what I would recommend to people is there may likely be longer lines in the morning. And, everyone tends to go on their way to work. So if you have the ability to go later in the day, the polls are open from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. So if you have the ability to go later in the day, you won't encounter long lines typically. And if the lines are a little bit longer in the morning, we probably won't make a change. But if we see a really, disruptive pattern of long lines, then obviously it may be inconvenient that election, but we will, we will look at adjusting things in the future to accommodate as voter habits continue to change.
And per legislation that was voted from a referendum by the voters in 2022, it allowed through state law for local clerk's offices to make these sorts of decisions in the future should regulations regarding elections from the federal level, from the state level change. You still would have that flexibility, Debbie, and this will be my last question for you. If we do, for many other reasons, whether they're political reasons, regulatory reasons, or so on, see an increase of people going back to the polls as opposed to early voting or mail-in votes, is there a potential we could see more of these precincts come back years in the future?
I would say that we would adjust if we needed to, if we saw that kind of an increase. We're not going to leave, our voters with long lines. Again, if it's an hour in the morning and the line's long but not insanely long, then we're not going to make an adjustment. But if we see that there's a voter shift, I have sitting right here, Tyler, I have it. Every election broken down by voter turnout, and how those voters chose to vote. So if we see those numbers shift back toward voting on election day or in a precinct, we will make an adjustment too. This is the adjustment for now. I don't know if you recall, but one of our election workers came and spoke at one of the board meetings about how he was bored all day. I think in one of the elections, I'm just looking, we had 92% of the ballots were cast by absentee ballot. It was a small election, and we've always had a higher number of ballots cast by absentee in a smaller election, but 92%, that left very little activity in the precincts. I think some of our precincts had more workers than they had voters. So we will continue to watch the habits, but as long as we're seeing what we're seeing now is about 70% of the voters are casting their ballot before Election Day, whether in the early voting center or by absentee, leaving about 30% voting on Election Day. So as long as we continue to see that, we will keep the numbers at what we have with the new ones. But yes, we will adjust in the future if we see those habits switch back.
Gone are the days where there's really only a couple ways that you can get your voice heard. You have so many more options to make sure that your voice is heard in each and every election, and our local clerk's office is making sure that they're doing their part to make those smooth experiences each and every time you go to the polls. Debbie, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Thank you.
West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder joining us on the Splash Live. West Bloomfield reducing the number of its election precincts from 26 down to 20 as we approach the midterm elections in 2026. More info on wbtownship.org if you want to get in contact with the clerk's office for any other questions. And, of course, follow them for more updates on their Facebook page at West Bloomfield Clerk's Office. This time of the year is one of the busiest out on our local lakes, with boaters and beachgoers alike enjoying the summer sun. Close to home in West Bloomfield, a learning opportunity for kids, getting them out on the water and setting sail on a brand new skill. Civic Center TV intern Ishan Desai has the story.
I'm here at Cass Lake, where Community School Sailing is hosting its Try It Out night. Parents and kids can get out onto the water and get a first-hand experience with the boats and equipment to see what this year of scholastic sailing will be like.
I think that one thing you should know is that sailing is one of those experiences that you think it's just sitting on a boat, but truly there's so many aspects to it that make it amazing. You get to learn how to tie knots, how to sail the boat, and if you come around with us a lot more often, you get to learn about the racing style and the techniques used in professional sailing that are even used in an Olympic environment, which I think is a very unique tool in the fall and spring times, where we have even clinics with professional sailing coaches and even mentors.
Out here, I mean, sailing being on the water is just something that is, I think, really therapeutic to people, really appealing for a lot of reasons. Cass Lake is a very busy lake with lots of boaters, and we have one of the largest sailing programs, so I'd say a lot of people just want to be part of something that's a growing sport around the nation, around the world, and it's a great way to meet a new community, and a really great community at that. So
I will say high school and the middle school sailing with community sailing school, it brings in not just one high school, so it's not just West Bloomfield, it's not just Groves, it's not Seahome, it's not just ECDS, it's all of the schools coming together. So you're meeting so many people from so many different areas, and we're coming together, we're having dinner together, we're sailing together, we're competing together. And it's a great way to meet people in the community and make so many friends, not just within your school, but just around the entire Oakland County area.
before the start of each high school season in the fall, we like to allow new prospective members, students, to try out high school racing for the first time. They usually arrive after school, or in this case in the evening, and they're going to go out on boats, and they're going to learn a little bit about sailing if they haven't already, and they're going to get to know their coaches, and they're going to get familiar with Cass Lake.
So scholastic sailing works a lot like our other sports in our high schools and our middle schools, except we're traveling to our other events. So when we get our middle school programs are more about training and learning how to sail, and then our high schools continue on to go to different events all over the Midwest and across the nation. So it works a lot like a soccer or a football team, except our meets or our games are regional. So we go to different places in Michigan or out of state to compete against other sailors. I think sailing is similar to other sports, that if we're athletic and minded and we're good at basketball, good at football, it comes to us pretty easily. But if we're not real athletic minded, I wasn't a real athlete as a young person, but sailing is, because there's a lot of mental and focus and thought process to it, as well as a physical aspect, it works well for us that are not always the most physical people for regular conventional sports.
It was great to get out onto the water and get a first-hand experience with the boats. If you want to get out on the water and learn about the sport of sailing, be sure to come to the Try It Out night at Cass Lake. For Civic Center TV, I'm Ishan Desai.
To learn even more about the Community Sailing Academy right here in West Bloomfield, the first fully accredited sailing academy in the state of Michigan, you can watch our recent interview with Eric Ellison from their team on demand on civiccentertv.com. It's a tradition that spans the generation and concludes the summer in the tastiest way possible. For now, 60 years, the prettiest little city in Michigan bids farewell to the summer with their annual ice cream social, connecting neighbors and old friends alike and creating an historical landmark along each and every calendar year's August page. Sylvan Lake Garden Club member Tina Herzberg, as well as city historian Helen Jane Peters, recently joined me to preview the big anniversary of the prettiest little city in the state of Michigan. Ladies, thank you both for being with us today.
Hello.
Glad to have
Hi,
you both.
Tyler.
Glad to have you both on the show to talk about this. Always an exciting day in the city of Sylvan Lake, bringing people together for the ice cream social. Tina, I want to start with you. The Sylvan Lake Garden Club plays a big role behind the scenes, getting this all together at the community center. What can we expect here in a couple of weeks?
Well, it's a week away.
Yeah.
We're going to have outdoor games. We've actually got Oakland County bringing some of their inflatable game, bounce house and climbing wall. And there'll be all kinds of history about the ice cream social set up. Good desserts to partake in with a top of ice cream and some sprinkles on top of that. So come say hello to meet new neighbors, say hello to old neighbors, and it's a fun time just getting together with everybody.
6 p.m. on August 21st. That is a Thursday night in the city of Sylvan Lake. 6 p.m. Sylvan Lake Community Center open to everyone in the prettiest little city in the state of Michigan. Helen Jane Peters is also with us, the Sylvan Lake historian. And Helen Jane, Tina mentioned it. This is something that really does also look into the history of Sylvan Lake. But this event in particular is one of those that has spanned the generation. So for you, just how critical has the ice cream social been as sort of that marking point throughout the years and throughout the decades in Sylvan Lake history?
Well, this started 60 years ago in 1965, and it started with the Garden Club. And I don't know for sure if I was at the first one, but I have attended as many as possible. And it's always fun because it's like bringing the whole community together. You see people that you haven't seen possibly since last year when we had this. And it's wonderful for new people to come to meet their neighbors. So that is really fun. One thing that they used to do years ago is the children in Sylvan Lake were asked to sell tickets to the ice cream social. And they were little, like 2x3 tickets, and they would go to their neighbors and ask if they would like to buy one. So they'd be all set when they came to the ice cream social. So if the kids sold 10 tickets, they would receive one free for themselves. And so they really worked hard so they'd have a ticket for themselves. I'm kind of guessing their parents would not just give them $1 to buy a ticket, but they would actually earn their ticket. And that went on for many, many years. In fact, Mrs. Mason was the one in charge of that, and she had been a teacher at Whitfield, so she knew a lot of these kids. And they really had fun going door to door, trying to sell tickets. But that stopped a few years ago. But it was a lot of fun. But we do have our display boards up that tell the history of Sylvan Lake, and I'll be there to answer questions. And we have some special ones that Tina and I made 5 years ago to honor our ice cream social. So there are lots of pictures for you to look at, lots of things that you might not know about Sylvan Lake. And you'll see that on the displays at the community center.
Yeah, small town, but it has a robust history that a lot does center around these community gatherings. Tina, I want to go back to you because the location of this is quite significant in the history of Sylvan Lake, but as it stands right now, the community center property, it could not be a better location to bring people together in the prettiest little city in Michigan, to have all these different activities. And really it is that central point, even though it's off on the lakeside, it really is that central gathering point for this entire Sylvan Lake community.
It really is. The community center, when I first came here, the community center was the old community center. Mm-hmm. And it's been such a gathering space. It's lovely. I love it. And my phone was pinging there. Sorry,
No
I
worries.
missed the rest of your question.
That's okay. Technology gets in the way sometimes. We do this over Zoom, all these interviews. Convenient to bring everybody in from all throughout our community and beyond. And sometimes we got to navigate through that. No big problem. Tina Herzberg with us from the Sylvan Lake Garden Club. Helen Jane Peters also with us, the Sylvan Lake historian. The Sylvan Lake Ice Cream Social comes back for its 60th annual event on Thursday, August 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Ice cream, just $2. Great opportunity to meet some new neighbors. And Tina, that's what's really this is all about. It's about bringing people back together from across the city of Sylvan Lake as we wrap up the summer season, one of the most vibrant in the city all throughout the year. But it's also about also a great way to help people that have now joined in on the city of Sylvan Lake to get to know their community a little bit and become a part of it.
It really is. People come from that have moved away, return. You know, we haven't seen them in a little while, and so it's a nice time to revisit and say hello and, you know, what have you been up to? And yeah, we have people that have moved away and still bake us a cake or two and bring it to the ice cream social. And yeah, it's so much fun just discovering the friendships and reigniting, and yeah, it's a wonderful event.
And
some of the write-ups we get afterwards are just amazing.
I can imagine people love to come back to the city of Sylvan Lake that have lived there in past years for things like this, or to explore the city and reconnect with some of those places where they made core memories all throughout their life. And Helen Jane, what's special about the community center being the location for the ice cream social every year, even dating back to 1965 in its first iteration, is that even back in 1965, that's still pretty late in the history of that particular property. It's been bringing out the kids and families and connecting people in Sylvan Lake, even generations before that. So how significant is that location to this particular event today and historically?
Well, our community center is absolutely beautiful. We have a new building. Well, it was built in 2008, so it's not quite 20 years old yet, but it is beautiful inside and out. And the property, I think of one of the things that the kids, Tina has said that they're going to have these inflatables from the county. But, you know, it's up on a hill, and the kids used to love to run down the hill or roll down the hill. And that was always fun. And they used to play like musical chairs, where they put the chairs in a circle, and then everybody marches around the chairs, and you sit when the music stops. And they take one chair away, so one person is left without a chair to sit in, and so they're out of the game. But then they would win something. The last person standing would win a very special cake. In fact, Char Gamble was one that used to make them that looked like a doll or a Disney a character, and the kids loved that. In fact, I'll be surprised if Char doesn't do that again. And I want to reiterate, the cakes are all homemade. They are delicious, and it's really hard to make a decision which one you're going to choose. And then you have a choice of chocolate or vanilla ice cream. And I also want to say that Ann Nichols has been the chairman of this event for at least 40 years. Wow. We recognized her a few years ago at the Michigan Week breakfast. To honor her as a volunteer. And she was absolutely, she has this down to a science. She knows exactly what has to happen and what has to happen ahead of time. So it's very well organized. You buy your ticket and you go through the line, and then you choose your cake and ice cream. So we can thank Anne for doing this for so many years, and all the wonderful homemade cakes.
And it's, of course, it's one of the hallmark traditions of the city of Sylvan Lake, but it's also something that has withstood the test of time and also changed over the years. And in a world where we're so fragmented today, we have our busy lives, we have so much going on, people are not getting out as much maybe today as they have in the past. Tina, I want to go to you. How important in 2025 are these community traditions now in comparison to even just a few years ago?
Oh, very important. It's just so empowering to know all your neighbors and to see them on a regular basis and to talk and meet with them. You can just take a walk and you're talking to how many people on your walk. I mean, it's very important these days to be able to reach out and just say hello, just know your neighbors. Very important.
And Helen Jane, you've seen this event throughout the years. You've seen the different times throughout the history of Sylvan Lake that you've been in the city and that you've been serving as the city's voluntary historian. How this event has changed, how it's made an impact, and how it really reflects on what makes the Sylvan Lake community special. So as people are experiencing the event now and in the past few years and in the years to come, just how important are moments like this, even as they are just a drop in time, how important are they over the span of time for a city like Sylvan Lake?
Well, we do know a lot of our neighbors, but there are people that might live on another street that we don't pass when we're out walking. And this is a walking community. And if you don't have a dog, like we don't anymore, it's just unusual for people to walk without a dog. But anyway, we do know and love our neighbors. And we keep track of them. And if we don't see them, somebody will knock on their door to find out if they're okay. So we are a caring, loving community, and we do want to know what's happening with our neighbors. Everyone is very loving. In fact, somebody just bought the house next door, and I was telling her what it's like to live here. And it's still going to be a surprise to have so many people interested in your life and what you're up to. So we do care about each other, and this is going to continue. This is what builds our whole community. All of what we do here is because we care about each other, and especially our neighbors. So just come, because you will feel the love between everybody, and that's one thing that Sylvan Lake is known for.
It's these kinds of moments that make living in a town like Sylvan Lake bring you back in time a little bit, back in the generations to when we had these small towns that had that sort of connection and gave people that special connection to where they live. Tina, Helen, Jane, I want to thank you both for joining us. Before we let you go, Tina, anything else that people should know about this upcoming event or other things coming up after the ice cream social with the Sylvan Lake Garden Club?
We'll have our next meeting in September. Actually, we've got an evening presentation coming up too in September. But if you're interested in the garden club, there'll be some information at the ice cream social. You can talk to one of the members if you're interested in joining us. We meet once a month at the community center and talk about gardening stuff or talk about our neighbors.
You can
saying hello.
Yeah,
just social.
Helen Jane Peters, Tina Herzberg with us from the Sylvan Lake Garden Club and the City of Sylvan Lake. Their annual ice cream social Thursday, August 21st at the Sylvan Lake Community Center. That all kicks off at 6 p.m. Games and activities from Oakland County Parks. Outdoors, plenty of ice cream, and of course, friendly people in and outdoors in the City of Sylvan Lake in just a little while, August 21st, 6 p.m. More information can be found on Facebook at Sylvan Lake Garden Club. Tina, Helen, Jane, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you, Tyler.
Everything you need to know about the Sylvan Lake Ice Cream Social and other fun happening in Sylvan Lake all throughout the summer and the rest of the year, sylvanlake.org is the place to go for all of that information. Next Monday kicks off a brand new school year for Laker Nation with changes in the classroom, new programs on the horizon, and brand new facilities under construction. There's a lot to know before your kids head back for the very first day. Our Civic Center TV team recently spoke with West Bloomfield Schools Superintendent Dr. Danya Bazzi for a look ahead at the 2025-2026 school year.
Dr. Danya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really, really happy to be having this conversation with you. It's crazy that we're already at the start of another school year. It seems like the summer has just flown by just in these last few months. What would you say is your overarching vision and main priorities for the West Bloomfield School District as we enter this brand new school year?
Well, I agree with you. I feel like we were just saying goodbye to staff and students and wishing them well for a great summer. And here we are about a week and a half away from welcoming our staff back for, beginning of the year professional development and connecting. And then August 25th, we'll be ready to welcome our families back for a new school year. So we're very excited about that. Our overarching goal for this year is to continue to allow the strategic plan to be our guiding map. That's really what we all utilize to make sure that we're working on the goals that we set forth as a district and community. As you know, there's a lot of stakeholders who work to create a strategic plan, and we've done a good job. Our staff and community have done a good job to really focus on our main goal areas that include academic excellence, student-centered support, staff development and retention, community engagement, and our facilities and operations. And I think you can see those things being worked on within our school family, and we're committed to continuing working on those goals and seeing them through.
Love to hear it, Danya. Love to hear of all of the great vibes and great feelings as we're about to enter another school year. I'm curious, are there any new or expanded programs, whether those be academic, extracurricular, or social, emotional, that families and students should know about for the 2025 school year?
We have a lot going on as it relates to academics within the district. One thing that we're really, really excited about is our K-5 ELA, our English Language Arts program that will be implemented across all 4 of our elementaries. Last year, we piloted that program in a select number of classrooms because we really wanted to assess 2 programs that we were investigating before we made a significant investment. We're happy to say that our teachers and staff led us through a pilot program where they then selected the best program that they felt would meet our students' need. So to see that being implemented this year across every single elementary classroom is really, really exciting. Another thing that we're implementing next year is new curricular resources for mathematics and our secondary programs, that being grades 6 through 12. So again, we are updating our resources to make sure that they're aligned to our students' needs. So those 2 academic areas are really, really important to us, as well as the continued expansion of our elementary STEAM program, because we know how important it is for our students to have access to engineering and science and technology at the early level. So that program is going to continue to grow. As we've seen, again, it was piloted last year with full implementation this year. Lastly, we're really excited about our Level Up Mathematics. Our goal is to get every student into Algebra 1 by 8th grade at West Bloomfield so that they're able to take calculus as seniors and that they're best prepared for the SAT moving forward. So that Level Up Math in elementary is going to allow our students the ability to take algebra as 8th graders. And again, we've seen great success with that program, and we'll continue to see significant growth in our students based on that.
Always working to shape young minds. I love to hear it, Danya. Great to hear of all these projects and programs that are going to be available in the next school year. Now, you were talking about the elementary schools just a second ago, and of course, one of the big things is still the construction that's taking place at the new Chico Elementary School, and there have been some building transitions and some shifts in school assignments and some redistricting going on. How is the district preparing to support students through these ongoing shifts?
Right now, Chico is in its second year at the Abbott site, and that transition has went well. Obviously, there's logistical issues in terms of location for some of our families, but we've worked in terms of providing transportation to the north side of the district to make sure that our families are supported in that way. Our hope is that Chico will continue to stay at Abbott this year, and then the building completion will be, the building will be completed in August of 2026, where they'll be able to move in to a brand new state-of-the-art facility that has a children's museum theme. So we're really excited about that building and what it's going to offer our students. With that, though, we'll be coordinating a move for Doherty to move to the Abbott site so that we can start the construction of the Doherty site. And again, our staff is phenomenal. The Chico move really went very well because we have a staff that's committed to being positive and helping where they can help. And we have great we have a great facilities and operations team that help coordinate that. So, of course, there's bumps in the roads, but overall, I feel like the transition has worked well, and we've been able to support our families wherever those gaps exist.
Seems like it. And we here at Civic Center TV, we got a look at the Chico construction not too long ago. Seems like everything's going along pretty nicely. You said that it's scheduled to open in August of 2026. How do you think that progress has been going with the school, and what are you most excited about for everybody to see with the new building?
I'm really excited for them to see the classroom spaces that we have. They're designed in a way that looks at, efficiency and high academic standards, but also looks at school safety and making sure that we keep everyone safe as best as possible within our schools. I think you're going to see a lot of Michigan history in that building that's pretty neat in terms of, again, we're trying to create the atmosphere of a museum that's focused on Michigan history and Michigan facts because we're obviously proud Michiganders as well. So I think it's going to be a unique building that really ties in history of our state into the building.
Awesome. And of course, we're talking about the Chico elementary construction, but as you said, the Doherty construction is going to be worked on very, very soon. Can you walk us through maybe some of the status or the plans for some of the future construction efforts that are going to be taking place?
So the Doherty site will follow in terms it will be its own unique building with its own unique flair, but a lot of the common spaces will be very similar to Chico. Our goal is to standardize what the classroom looks like in West Bloomfield School District so that all of our students have a similar experience in those buildings. So the classroom design, as well as like our cubby spaces for school safety, those will be common. Spaces like the cafeteria and gymnasium and the I Center, which serves as our media center, those spaces will be common to Chico in terms of building a standardization within our buildings. But Doherty, like I said, because it's on a unique piece of land, there's going to be attributes that are really specific to Doherty and that honor, its past, its history, and us moving forward, for the future of our students. So our goal is to start that building as soon as the Chico site is completed. Our design process is almost complete with that. We should be finishing up the designs by end of September, early October, and then those designs will go out to bid in the fall so that we're able to start construction in the summer.
Can't wait to see all these great schools make their way to West Bloomfield. For those just joining us right now on the Splash Live, I'm talking with West Bloomfield School District Superintendent Dr. Danya Bazzi, giving us a preview of the 2025-26 school year, which is just a few short weeks away. And of course, plenty of great new programs and resources available this school year, including the district recently just opened the Adult Transition Center for students ages 18 to 26. I was there at the grand opening. It looks like an incredible resource for a lot of people. What goals do you hope that this center fulfills in the coming school year, and what's the reception been like so far?
So far, the families have been really impressed with the space. Our staff has utilized some of the summer to help transition and move over from their current site. There's excitement around that program in terms of a sense of belonging to the West Bloomfield School District. The program is twofold, right? This is an adult transition program, so you want to feel that it is transitioning into adulthood. So they're not in high school, and we don't want to treat them as they're in high school. So that's why you saw the building has a separate entrance, access to parking, so that they do have that sense of this is their space. But at the same time, West Bloomfield High School has so many amenities that they can now utilize: the track, the pool, the theater space, the cafeteria space. These are spaces that they didn't have in their previous site. So bringing them in is allowing them access to a lot of the wonderful amenities at West Bloomfield High School, and then making more partnerships and connections with our student body as well as our staff there.
All very, very important. Love hearing about these great developments. Can't wait to see what the Transition Center does in the coming year. Danya, looking beyond this school year for the 2025 year, are there any additional facility improvements or infrastructure plans that families and community members should anticipate in the next phase?
Yeah, one thing that we're really excited about and working on the designs as we speak is the career and technical STEAM space at West Bloomfield High School. This will be an updated space for our robotics, our architectural programs, our computer application programs. This space will allow to have a full-size robotics practice field on site at West Bloomfield High School. This is really having a real focus on robotics and STEAM spaces for our staff. So those, we've been working very closely with the teachers, Mr. Buddy and Mr. Shaw, as well as our architectural teacher. Though they have been instrumental in the design of those spaces, and we're very excited about that. There'll be a significant addition at West Bloomfield High School, but it'll allow our robotics program to have the space necessary to really get into the AI world and the robotics, like the automation world. So we're very excited about that.
Looking ahead to the future, I'm sure the kids are going to love it and the teachers as well. Dr. Bazzi, I know you're very busy, lots of planning to come ahead for the upcoming school year. Last question before we wrap things up. Any final words you'd like to say to parents or anybody watching about this upcoming school year?
All I say is, I thank everyone for their partnership. We're all here to do what's best to support our students, staff, and community, and those lines of communication are open. I really encourage everyone to join us for Family Fun Night on August 28th at West Bloomfield High School at 5 p.m. It's going to be a wonderful community event, and we'd love to see everyone out there.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be out there having a great night at West Bloomfield High School. Danya, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Splash Live.
Thank you. Have a great one.
That's our show. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always online on civiccentertv.com and across our social media pages. Big thank you to our entire crew at Master Control for making this happen, and of course to you for joining in. For our entire team, I'm Tyler Kieft, live, local, social. This is the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.